more than 60 minutes, which I thought was I think group work loses steam after a certain amount of time. I found that faculty often were not using the technology in their classroom. All of our classes at College Park now have a computer and projector, and most of the bases do, but in my understanding, some of the military bases still don't. But I found that even when the classes had a computer, a projector, the faculty members were still largely writing on the blackboard or writing on the whiteboard. And faculty often are not participating in the LEO discussions. Back to our definitions at the beginning of this presentation from the Brewer and Brewer article, some of the hybrid courses look a little bit more like web-assisted courses. Most of the instruction really is occurring face-to-face, and there's the LEO environment to post your paper or to post an occasional question. I found that in some cases that faculty were often not participating in LEO discussions, and as a result, students stopped participating, to a large extent. My suggestions, I wanted to give suggestions for the face-to-face course, the face-to-face portion of the hybrid course. One is to connect the LEO activities to the face-to-face class. You should have LEO discussions going on, 1 or 2 per week, and then refer to them in the face-to-face class, and they should be connected to the activities, the assignments, the course outcomes that you're covering. I mentioned these different things. Vary your activities, vary your media, vary your communication patterns, and vary your course outcome emphases. Obviously, vary your activities. That goes without saying. But students come to a hybrid class from work often. They've been working all day, and they come to your class at 7 p.m., and so they're there for 3 hours. Varying your media can really be helpful. Instead of you talking the whole time, maybe if you could show a short video for 10 minutes. Obviously, some group work helps, but not, like I said before, I don't think an hour's worth of group work is particularly helpful. Teacher-to-student communication would be a typical lecture. Student-to-student communication would be a typical group project that the students might be doing, a group activity. Obviously, student-to-teacher is more of a, the teacher's asking questions and the students responding. But varying the communication patterns can really help as well. What I mean by the last bullet is varying your course outcome emphases. To give an example, a writing class that covers 3 hours of grammar probably isn't appropriate because that reflects one of the 4 outcomes in most of our writing classes. A writing class that never covers grammar probably isn't appropriate because that would neglect one of the micro-level writing skills we like to emphasize. So varying the emphases in your course outcome points. Some of you might be familiar with the notion of being a constructivist classroom. Some people who call themselves constructivists, they take the position that students develop their own knowledge. They create their own understanding of the knowledge. And the word lecture has kind of fallen on bad terms recently. Folks feel that lecturing is very much a transmission type of pouring knowledge from one person to the class. This gentleman, Peter Sankoff, tried to teach he was teaching in a law school, and he had a hybrid class, and what he found that was missing was the lecture. He tried to make his class a problem-solving class in which the students got together face-to-face and solved problems. And they would, in their online environment, they were trying to do some reading to prepare for the problem-solving exercise, and they would come to class to get together in groups and solve the problems. But what he found was I had neglected to consider fully the role that lecturing can still play, providing students with a better understanding of concepts. It might not be the most interesting part of the learning process, but a large proportion of students still value the lecture. And so you don't have to apologize for giving a lecture in your face-to-face class. And I would also say that PowerPoint has fallen on has had a bad rap the last number of years. But a good PowerPoint is a good PowerPoint. So you can prepare a PowerPoint for your face-to-face class. The lecture can give understanding of the basics. Without a clear understanding of the basics, performing at the more advanced level I was hoping for became a challenge, says Sankoff, and somewhat frustrating. So he found that as he tried to really be innovative with his hybrid course, he went back to giving a lecture once in a while because he felt it was necessary to review the basics. Michelle, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to pause at this point for questions or if it would be better just to keep going. I wasn't sure if you had
Actually, We do have a couple questions and some comments as well, Andy. So if you don't mind, I know that, I don't want to interrupt the flow of where you're going with the rest of your presentation. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and just field a couple. One of them, Paul was asking when you were talking about the hybrid student that says, hey, I just not going to show up for many of these classes. He's asking, how should an instructor handle a case like that hybrid student where he says they'll be absent for most of the face-to-face classes?
First of all, I think you should email your program chair and let him or her know. We have military representatives here who can, if the situation is one that needs attention, we can contact the military representatives. I mean, if it's, I say military because often it's a student who's in the military and that may be the reason that he or she cannot attend the class. So if it's a military student, that would be one approach. Later in this presentation, I'm going to mention that I really think you should have 2 participation grades, one for online work and one for face-to-face work. And if the student sees that participation is 20% of the class grade, 10% of it's online, 10% of it's face-to-face, at least the student knows that he may get a 0 or a very low grade for that face-to-face participation grade. That can help. I'm not saying it solves the problem, but it can help.
Pardon me. The next comment, Andy, is actually a comment. And I think I'm going to frame a question from it and saying there's a chain of conversation going on here about what if you encounter problems with the technology in your classroom, or there is no technology in that classroom. Is there like a formal process that you're aware of for, like, this faculty member said it took her, she couldn't get a username or password when she was at University of Maryland College Park until week 3. And support wasn't, very helpful. Is there another suggestion you can make for how she could have gotten assistance sooner?
We got to know this process a little bit more this year. We had a lot of new faculty teaching hybrids, including at College Park. And I'll give you one anecdote. Apparently, what happens if you're teaching a hybrid at College Park is a representative from UMUC will send you an email message saying, please, I forget what the message says, but it basically asks for information that they can give to College Park to give you a login and a password to log into the computer and to use the equipment. Well, just to give you an example, that message, I believe for the spring semester was sent in February, or it was sent some. But we had an instructor who was staffed for her class after that message was sent, so she never got the message. I mean, that happens sometimes, especially with a program as big as the writing program. We have instructors whose hybrid class might start in the middle of the semester because it's a term 2 class, and we just staff the instructor 5 weeks or 6 weeks before the semester starts. Well, we didn't know that. Well, now we know that. So if we staff an instructor for a place like College Park, and we know it's the instructor's first time teaching at College Park, we are trying to be more proactive about that, making sure that that person gets the information, gets the email message that allows them to give the information to College Park. So there may have been some glitches that were related to the communication patterns occurring between us and College Park. If you did submit your information to College Park and you never got when you walk into the class for your first face-to-face class, you should have a login and password. And if you haven't received that in some way, there's something wrong. And I would contact the program chair and support specialist of your unit. If you can't expect to go into the class and just think that you can log into the computer, you should have been sent information to that effect. And if you haven't, then there's something wrong. So that's one thing we can try to be proactive about is if you're not going into class with that information, you know that there's been some miscommunication and you need to contact the folks. In terms of the military bases, I'm not really sure which ones have it and which ones don't. I observed somebody at bowling last spring, and I know that there was a projector, but I wasn't sure if he had access to it. I didn't have a chance to ask. So I don't know how to answer that. By the way, if you don't have any technology, if it's simply not there, in fact, I observed somebody at Pax River, and there was just no technology there. I feel for you, and a lot of photocopying, I guess, has to occur, and I don't think it's ideal, but that's what I would do. Is you'd have a lot of handouts and things of that nature. I mean, other than getting, most people own their own laptop. They don't own their own projector, usually. So that's the best I can do right now for my advice as to what to do to overcome those technology problems.
Okay, Andy, and this one, I think we can just we can just touch on this briefly because I don't think that this is a question that you will be able to answer or that I will. But Ephraim was asking what's the long-term UMUC strategy in terms of course offerings, meaning are there plans to increase or decrease the number of hybrid course offerings, or is this primarily an option for military-based courses?
No, I am not in those conversations, but I can say it's not just for military students. We are, just the writing program has started to offer hybrids in Washington State, at Joint Base Lewis-McChord, at Fort Bliss, Texas, at Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Drum, New York, Jeb Little Creek and Virginia Beach, Honolulu, Hawaii, San Diego, California. Our first hybrid class is being offered this summer at San Diego. I see the number of hybrid locations increasing, not decreasing. That's my personal observation.
And I agree with Andy on that one, from just our training of faculty who are being hired to teach hybrid classes. So, but, again, this is just our informal best guess, to be able to answer that type of a strategic question. This leads into something, Andy, for you to continue on with your topic. Dina is saying, she makes a comment, student will normally find, oh, I'm sorry. Let me jump back to hers. She says, you indicate that the online discussion should tie in with a classroom activity. However, I've typically used the online portion of the class to cover one topic and the face-to-face portion of the class to cover another topic. How do you suggest aligning the online portion with the face-to-face portion while ensuring that all materials are covered? And I have a feeling you're about to lead into that.
Yeah, perhaps. Something that I think somebody said this one. A colleague of mine said this a few years ago. I forget who it was. And I'll just quote him. You don't want your hybrid course to be like two courses, one online course and one face-to-face course, like as if two different things are going on at once. The simple answer I would give would be you can always, if you're doing something online, let's say you're covering a topic online that you don't plan to cover face-to-face, at least you can refer to it face-to-face and project it on the screen, how the discussion went and talk, for 15 minutes about what was covered. In other words, just follow up in the face-to-face class on what went on online and explain why that online discussion or those two discussions occurred. So that students see a connection between the face-to-face and online class. That would be one suggestion I have. When I go through some other parts of the presentation, there might be some more insights I give on that. But I do think that the two should be connected. If you're covering something online, it's going to be related to something you cover face-to-face, I would think. And I'm speaking from the perspective of a writing instructor. I can't speak for all the disciplines here. I hope that's helpful. I don't know if I...
Yes, thank you very much. I think so. I think you answered the question, hopefully. But I'm going to let you keep on with your presentation because I know you've got quite a bit more to cover. And I think that you'll end up answering some of the questions. Yes, Dina said yes. Thank you, Andy.
Sure. Something that my Vice Dean, Gretchen Jones, has suggested, have some sort of graded activity in each class. This will cause students who might normally miss class to have an incentive to come. And, for example, a quiz. A quiz could be given in every face-to-face class. By the way, this is new to me. I haven't done this in hybrids I've taught, and it's been a couple of years since I taught a hybrid, so that's one reason. But one approach you can take is if you give like a quiz every week, you can drop the lowest quiz at the end of the semester, so the student who does happen to miss a face-to-face class doesn't get totally penalized. But it does cause the student who's missing 3 or 4 face-to-face classes to see an effect on his or her grade. So the person who might be inclined to skip a class might be persuaded otherwise. This is a recommendation that has been suggested to me by my vice dean, and I think you might be hearing more about this in other contexts. I wanted to give you an example of a face-to-face class. I've subbed for for a number of instructors over the past 2 years, and so some of these ideas come from my subbing. I've also taught, obviously, some of these ideas come from just my time teaching. So I wanted to just give you an idea of what I might do in a face-to-face class, and this would be a 7 to 10 type of course, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And the first one I want to mention is Writing 101, our freshman comp course. The 4 outcomes for Introduction to Writing are on your screen. Notice this is kind of like a global level outcome. This is like the second one is like a middle level outcome. The third one is like a micro level outcome, and the fourth one is a research skills outcome. So the global level meaning, you know, approaching your topic and approaching the organization of your paper. The middle level meaning how do you support the argument made in your paper. The micro level meaning the grammar and mechanics and citation accuracy, and finally the research skills.